Welcome to the Afterthoughts podcast. Alongside me, Ryan. Yes, Doug. I'm here, man. Kayla and Jacob.
Hey.
How are you guys? Hey, do you ever have one of those
Yes.
mornings where you're singing in the car and you're like, I think I'm a pretty good singer?
Oh, yeah.
All
morning of my entire life.
I don't often, but I did today.
What were you singing?
Justin Bieber.
Which one?
Off My Face, or whatever that song
Here's
is called.
here's the
And I was
question.
like, I think I'm killing this right now.
Here's how you know. When you pulled up to a red light, did you continue singing?
I did.
Or did you turn the music down and like,
No, I
one of
kept
those?
going.
Oh, then you're a great singer.
So I'm a
man.
good singer?
That's all, yeah. Tell
Good to know.
Emily,
Speaking
get
of voices,
Ethan on the
good to
worship
know.
I've been
team.
messing with your guys' voices with the Alvin and Chipmunks sound effects.
You've been doing
Prank.
sound effects on us?
Yeah. Prank,
Do we
got
sound
you.
cool?
Yeah, you
Is
sound
it still going?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's not anyone.
Doug feels like a good singer every day.
Every day of his life. Oh, he just is a good singer.
Yeah. Our last episode.
It was a tremendous hit.
The funniest?
Is it still
the best?
is it still Chipmunks? Okay.
Yeah, okay,
It's
we're
gonna be
back.
listenable
You're in the
from
clear.
here.
Yeah.
Let's
It's normal.
be serious,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. I wish our production crew here would take the podcast seriously. YouTube called our last episode because I looked at the words under the video. It said the funniest and most helpful episode.
What
yet,
an
which
honor.
means a lot that
Yeah.
YouTube called it that. And we have a faithful Afterthoughts audience. And some of them comment, so I wanted to
on.
just respond to a few of
Sure.
those comments.
Yes.
Let's go.
Josh Capers, I'll say it. I'm Afterthoughts' biggest fan.
Josh.
Love you, Josh.
Josh, we're your biggest
Deal.
fan.
Leanne was cackling at the take on Harry Potter and Voldemort, which was great.
Get out of high school, Voldemort. That was such a good
Everybody
call.
is a
That's a great
Slytherin.
point.
It's the first thing I'm going to do after I take over the world.
Take your Letterman jacket off.
Grow up.
Move
man.
on.
Krista, one of the best Afterthoughts podcasts yet, and that's saying a lot. Very nice.
She
Lynn
works for YouTube.
gave a really serious response. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
self-sabotaged God-given potential. At some level, I thought I was accepting and justifying my flesh because I'm human. Thank you for that perspective.
I get that. Come
Love
on.
when people
Yep.
are listening. We got congrats on our Forever Viral. The guitar player guy was saying CD Lamb taking the Cowboys, which didn't work out.
Oof.
Asked about merch. I think you can get Red Rocks merch on redrockschurch.com, and they'll mail it from Denver.
Yeah.
But there was a question that I wanted to tee up because Darth Ribbit, which is an amazing name, and
It's not your brother.
I don't know. The picture is Kermit the Frog with a hood on.
It might be JJ.
It might be. If it's not, whoever you are,
That's a
I love that
phenomenal name.
Darth Ribbit. He asked if we could go into more detail about the part where we were talking about accountability and that it's best to have, if you're a guy, have a guy as your accountability partner and not a
Right.
girl
Right,
or
right,
vice
right.
versa. And
Okay.
why is that? Does anyone
Yeah.
want to speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, I'll give a quick answer. Usually when we talk accountability partners, we're speaking of helping each other not give in to sexual temptations. So you're struggling with pornography, you bring that up to the group. You find somebody to be your accountability partner. So if you do mess up, you can tell them not so they can judge you, but so they can make sure you fall forward. And they meet you with grace, but then they challenge you and they push you. And you're not isolated in your struggle. Usually it's something very intimate to your life.
Yeah.
And so when you have a guy and a girl friendship and you're sharing very intimate things, in this case, 95% of the time it's something sexually intimate, that's going to just breed intimacy eventually between, I mean, almost like every time.
Yeah.
Every time. I promise you that's the direction it heads in.
Or it becomes complicated if one person gets into a relationship with somebody else, but
Right.
their closest person is like a guy with another female. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, his girlfriend is kind of like, this girl knows everything about you and you've built this intimate relationship and that's your go-to person to talk about us. I think that it's, and also I'll just say it, men and women are different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
think differently and operate
Yeah.
differently.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a way that we can't relate to each other.
Correct.
And that it's easier for me to talk to one of you guys about certain things than it is
Yeah.
a woman.
Yep, that's good.
So I think that's good advice. I wanted to follow up on something else because I watched the first few minutes of our last episode and
Okay.
I am, I guess, behind the times. I did not know that Legos had electricity now. I saw
You
that
talking about Logan's Christmas present?
Yeah, there was real.
Dude,
like you were saying he
no.
was an electrician. I thought you were joking.
No. Like, yeah.
No, this isn't. It's
yeah.
it's a different brand. So it's the same concept as Legos.
Yeah.
But I talked to Logan about this. It's not the Lego brand. It's a different brand that there's more things other than like the building. Was it like a mountain cabin or something like that
Yeah.
he was building?
Yeah.
So it had like the electrical components and
Whoa.
It's funny because it's
Yeah.
stored like in the basement, like how it actually would be.
No way.
yeah. It's like you're building. It's like you're
Yeah.
building. You learn a lot about how a real house is built by
That's
building
awesome.
this. Really
That's
cool.
Really cool.
Okay. I'll put that on my my birthday list.
Well, it is the gift that keeps on giving.
Don't
I think
send
we've
me-
brought it up in every episode. The last 4. So there you go.
It's really become a character of the Afterthoughts podcast.
Just wait until June 16th, man.
No need to send me
I
your
can't
birthday
wait.
list, man.
Yeah,
We
I
got
won't-
you.
Already discovered what I want. Real quick, just hit some sports real fast. NFL playoffs are happening.
Upon us.
It's a
Yes.
wild weekend. The Cowboys got destroyed.
wild card weekend.
Thank you. Wild card weekend. Cowboys got destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
Eagles got destroyed.
Sorry, Matt.
Some shocking stuff. Let's do some quick predictions for this weekend.
'Kay.
We got Ravens, Texans.
Ravens.
I got to say Ravens for McKenzie.
For McKenzie.
Yeah.
The Texans look
But
so
the Texans
good.
are hot.
Yeah.
I'm,
They look
I'm going Texans
so
with
good.
the upset.
Okay.
Ooh.
Shock the world. Chiefs, Bills in Buffalo.
Bills.
I just have to pray that it's the Bills.
Please, Bills.
There is nothing I want less than the Chiefs back in the Super Bowl.
Did you see
That
how much
will
snow
ruin
they
my
came
year.
back
I think
to?
we can all agree
Huh?
on that.
Did you see how much snow they came back to?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was insane.
Wild.
Plus, your
Hard
brother's
weekend.
the biggest.
My brother's a Bills
fan in the world.
So
so
that's
for,
important.
for JJ.
He's part of the Bills Mafia.
Yep.
Okay, then we have on the other side, we have the 49ers with the Packers.
49ers.
49ers, yeah.
Yeah.
Although Jordan Love looked great,
He really does.
but he's got a promising future. We're going 49ers.
The Packers are the one team that's really done the waiting in the wings thing with the quarterback
Oh,
well.
yeah.
And
They've
they
done it so well.
seem to
For
turn
Chad
out.
Broodman and Rudy Valentino, the 49ers.
The 49ers.
And then
Yes,
the
let's
Lions
go.
Buccaneers.
Dude, I want the Lions to go to the Super
Me
Bowl.
too.
Yeah.
All in on the Lions.
That would be awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the dream. Okay, we'll see. And that takes us to questions with Kayla.
yes.
Welcome back, Kayla. So good to have you.
Thank you
Let's
so much.
go.
Glad
Thanks
to
for
be
joining
back.
us again.
Happy to be here. First question: if Red Rocks had a mascot, what would the mascot be and why?
Just the Red Rocks
Giant
Amphitheater.
rock,
Yeah. I picture just a giant.
like an emoji rock kind of guy.
Yeah, there you go. But it's red.
Yeah.
But like
Why not?
sports wise,
Oh, wait,
does that
totally
make
see it.
sense?
Or what's that?
But it's
Like
red.
sports
Yeah,
wise,
we got
that wouldn't
that.
really
Yeah.
make sense to be a rock.
Okay, a mountain lion.
Oh,
Because mountain lions live, well, in the mountains.
Right.
But Red Rocks, there's a lot of
Yeah. Good.
there's a lot of mountain lions.
Speaking of my brother,
Lion of Judah, you know what I mean? Lion
Yeah,
and the
we could be
Lamb.
mountain
they
lion.
have some mountains over there. Maybe
Yeah.
there were mountain lions.
Yeah.
Maybe David killed a mountain lion.
Yeah, maybe.
Benaiah killed a mountain lion in a snowy pit.
Exactly.
In a pit on a snowy day.
Speaking of that,
Exactly.
it's so cold in Austin right now.
So
It's
cold in this
absolutely
office.
miserable.
Dude, it's like 50 degrees in this office
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah,
In our
I'm bundled
professional
up.
studio,
I don't know if I'm on a.
it's 50 degrees right now.
I'm dressed to go snowboarding for our podcast right now. It
Yeah.
is brutal.
Next question: which two companies would you like to be sponsored by?
Oh, good question, because we have a lot of companies trying to sponsor the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, which
So
ones are we
this
gonna
is more of a
choose?
business discussion right
I
now.
think Athletic Greens, just so we
Athletic
have
Greens.
That's a
a
good
healthy
one.
start to our days.
That would be great. It's probably a more lucrative option out there.
Nope. Athletic Greens.
And free shake every morning. Like Tesla would be a good
Nope.
example.
AG1, baby.
Tesla's
You
looking
guys
to
would
sponsor
do
a
any
local
company.
podcast for sure.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
this isn't real, so we can have fun with it. No, let's be practical. I'm just to get
The
that
Broncos.
free
Ooh.
shake.
The
every
Broncos.
morning.
Dude, give me my
My
shake.
Athletic green smoothie, and then
Probably United Airlines.
wow,
First
Yeah.
class.
Great.
Tickets
Yeah.
anywhere.
Fly business class anywhere around the world.
Nice.
cool.
Okay. I don't think that's quite how sponsorships work. That they just
This-
give you like
well, this one
anything
is.
you want.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Why are
Yeah.
suddenly you guys being so practical about a question?
I just think, listen, if
Don't push it, man.
if we're gonna be flying all over the world, we should have AG1 to keep us
Ooh,
healthy.
what about Titleist?
for our immune systems?
Ooh.
Titleist would be
Titleist.
fun.
That'd
Yeah.
be a good one.
I was
Golf.
thinking Nike.
Yeah, but Nike would be
But-
great with shoes, but they don't do golf now.
You're right.
Oh.
Let's say Titleist and United and Athletic Greens because we get 3 now.
And Tesla, because we all get Cybertrucks.
And, oh yeah, okay, deal.
yeah.
The new matte black Cybertruck.
Yeah.
And NASA.
Yes.
for our next moon episode.
Good.
Perfect. Good idea. That'd be
Good.
cheaper.
Yeah.
They can subsidize some of our costs.
We don't have to
Yeah.
use our entire budget for the year.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Great. Athletic Greens and NASA. Sign us up.
Perfect. Me and Kinsley saw the moon again last night. And she talked about when I was there.
Wow.
She asked
You
me
just
about
talk,
it.
like, tell your memories. of
Yep.
it. It's so good.
I wonder if AG1 has a special like meal for space.
Nope,
You know,
they
how the
don't- not yet.
astronauts. Not yet. Maybe they can work on it.
Yeah, when he goes back.
Yeah, yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
great if they can develop that.
Yeah.
I'm not going until they have that. Okay?
But
Doug's
you could
demands are clear.
Okay, AG1 and NASA. You understand?
You could hit a Pro V1 off the moon. You could drive it out into space
Ooh.
with our Titleist sponsorship.
Man, that'd be the first time I ever lost one.
It wouldn't be. You wouldn't set the world record because it's not on the Earth, but you could set the universe record for longest
Yeah.
drive.
Wow.
That's
Send
true.
that drive into orbit.
Although he said there was, 1,700 people living on the moon?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
someone may have already broken that.
Oh,
No, no one's tried it
Yeah,
yet.
can we check on that? Jacob, can we double
The
check on that?
certainty with which Doug answers questions about the moon is great. Continue, Kayla.
All right, I have two more.
Are we still Alvin and the Chipmunks? Is that still
no,
going on?
you're good. You're in the clear.
Yeah, put it
Good.
back just for this question.
Okay.
What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
Become a professional golfer. Yeah. Yeah, probably that. I'm gonna steal that answer too. I would sponsored by Titleist. I would try to ride a 100-foot wave.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I would succeed at it.
Sounds like it. Good question. Yeah,
think
so it's a
you'd
rock,
still have
but it's
fear?
red.
If you did it,
What's that?
do you think you'd still have a lot of fear if you did it, or you think you'd be like,
I don't think I'd ever be afraid of anything ever again.
that's good. All right, do it.
But this is only if I can't fail.
But you know that you're not going to fail, so why would you be afraid?
That's true.
Well, there's probably more noble answers, but I would invest
I'm a pro golfer.
$1,000 into a low-risk, low-yield bond.
I will take my 2% over 30 years. I would reach out to Athletic Greens to ask for a sponsorship for our podcast. Can't fail.
There you go.
Can we tag them, or do they have a thing that we can send this to ask them if they
Yeah,
want to
we'll tag
sponsor
them.
us? We
Yeah,
would
we'll
love
tag
to.
them.
We'll drink Athletic Greens on the show every time.
Absolutely.
Every
Yes.
time.
I have some right over there. Right there.
Do some R&D.
Yeah. Okay,
In
we'll do
fact,
that.
hold on. Oh, here we go.
Make it happen, Captain.
We might have to blur this out, Jacob, because we're not yet sponsored, but we will.
We know we can't fail.
All right, let's do this.
Oh,
Start my morning.
Let's drink the
I
powder.
start my day every morning with Athletic Greens. Comprehensive, convenient daily nutrition with 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients made for just about everybody. AG1, get yours today.
Athletic
Made in
Greens
New
is made in
Zealand.
New Zealand. For complete
Wow.
supplement facts, visit athleticgreens.com/ingredients. We highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Thanks to our sponsors, Athletic Greens. Hold on. You guys good?
I am
Well, we're gonna have to double
drinking
that.
it
Okay.
right now.
Deal. What'd they say? They're in. Yes! And they doubled the price that we wanted. Business. I do have I'm putting together a masterclass on business, how to do a business deal. Okay. Be on the
Good.
lookout this year.
Good,
It's
good.
coming out on my birthday when I get this. All right, keep going, Taylor.
okay, we'll take it off. Alvin and the Chipmunks voice off now.
Oh, that was all in that?
Yeah, you said
Our
you
whole
said-
our whole sponsorship?
Yeah, the whole.
Okay, but we do want to be sponsored with Serious Voices by Athletic
Yeah.
Greens.
That'd be
We
great.
do want
With
that.
serious
Yes.
voice.
Yeah. I don't really know how that works. We'll find out.
Okay, here we go into kind of Doug's sermon. What is something you have changed in your life that required a lot of work?
Why are you laughing?
Well, I just saw the AG1 right there.
That
What?
required a lot of work.
Yeah.
Something we've changed in our lives.
I can start with food. I have the biggest sweet tooth ever, and I just love good food, and I love unhealthy food, and so it's taken a lot of work for me to really hone in my diet over the last probably really since we started the church, maybe 5 years ago.
I know. Thanks. I was there.
My diet is
you're
my
good.
answer. Took me a lot of work.
Diet.
Took you a lot of work to explain it.
Yeah, we got there.
Hey, but speaking of diet, Athletic Greens.
Athletic Greens.
Comprehensive, convenient.
Come on,
daily
AG1.
nutrition. 75 vitamins? Are you
Oh,
kidding me?
I actually have a serious and good answer. You guys done?
And superfoods.
Stop. Okay, Kayla, to answer your
Doug,
question,
I'm sure we'd be
Yeah.
fascinated
Thank you,
to hear
Doug.
what you have to say.
I was never naturally confrontational growing up, and so working hard to become changing the connotation of confrontation, and learning to be confrontational basically by like stepping into conflict and not avoiding it,
Nice.
and getting comfortable in it, and learning how to handle myself and navigate and have tough conversations. It's taken a lot of work. Some of it I've done by choice. Some of it I've done because I've been forced to, and I'm very grateful for it.
Nice.
Say something
answer.
controversial.
You mean confrontational? Those are two very different things.
Good start.
Are you?
Good start.
This is good. This is healthy. You guys having a confrontation here over Ryan misspeaking.
Great.
Good
Yep.
job.
Dude, I'm so cold.
Yeah. I know.
So hard
My
to
hands
put
are- my
words
hands are
together.
freezing.
I'll say something confrontational. No, I will not say something controversial.
Perfect.
Okay.
That was great.
Well, I'm mad now.
Yeah.
I was never.
And that's fine with me,
Okay.
if he's
I'm now. Doug's the funny guy.
Okay.
I was never a morning person, but I have become one. I've
for you.
forced that in my life, and I've come to love it. Love getting up early. Not every day. I don't love it every day, but I end up loving my morning routine.
Yeah.
When we lived, before we were all married, a bunch of guys living in a house, I would literally sleep until like the minute I knew I had to get up, so I'd have just enough time to make it to the point that our roommates would be like, if I was up a little early, like before 8, they'd be like, whoa,
Yeah.
you got like an early meeting today or something?
Yeah.
And that has changed in my life, and I'm thankful for it.
Nice.
Now I only have to sleep 1 hour a night too, thanks to that question.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been
Yeah, that's
awesome
true.
the past week.
Yeah.
You know what I thought about that question? When you're like, well, if you only like if you had all those extra hours, everyone else is asleep, what would you do? You just meal prep because you didn't choose the other one to be able to eat anything healthy. So kind of a lose-lose there.
Yeah, lose.
But a win also.
And you'd have to eat a lot more because you're up burning a lot more calories. And so that's a lot more
and
meal
less-
prepping.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, is that all you have for us?
That's all I got.
Okay.
That's
Well,
all I got.
Thanks again for being here.
Yeah. Thank you
Kayla.
for having me.
Speaking of change, it's a perfect segue. It's like you planned that.
Yeah.
You just talked about you can change.
Yes.
We just gave examples of that, things that can change
Yeah.
about us.
Yeah.
It was a great sermon,
Thank you.
powerful, needed.
Awesome.
Wanted to talk about a couple things.
What else did you guys think about it?
That was it.
That was it?
I embellished too.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was fine. When you talked about villain, victim, victor, or hero,
Yes.
I wanted to dive a little bit more into that. You
Sure.
brought up the Batman movies, which I thought was a great
Yeah,
example.
thanks for doing that, man.
Yeah.
That people have a choice kind of to what to do with
Yes.
the pain,
Yep.
and there's justification to be the victim. Talk a little bit about the victim mentality, because I think you,
Sure.
in a loving way,
Yeah.
poked at that.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people live with that, especially in this day and age.
Oh, big time.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, and that's one thing I learned from Donald Miller in that book, Hero on a Mission, which is so good, that the main characteristic of a victim is you're helpless and powerless. So you can't do anything, literally, unless somebody else intervenes and helps you.
Yeah.
It's funny because we're all born victims, essentially. There's nothing more helpless and powerless than
Yeah.
a newborn baby.
Yeah.
You know, you
Which
think
is-
about animals in
Yeah.
like giraffes being born,
And they just walk.
and they just start walking,
Just right away.
and they start finding food.
Yeah, my 1-year-old is just trying to walk.
Yes,
barely.
exactly.
We're pathetic. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
And so we all have that. You know, the reason I think there's all these different archetypes in a story, whether it's a victim or the hero or the villain or the guide, which I did not talk about, is because we all have those archetypes and those capacities for those characters living within each of us at all times.
Yeah.
And I described, essentially how Paul would say the flesh and the spirit. You have Cain and you have Abel. You have a great capacity to build up. You have a tremendous capacity to tear down.
Yeah.
You have a tremendous capacity to stay the victim and choose to stay powerless and helpless and stuck, when in reality you're far less stuck than you might think that you are. So the victim mentality, I gave a few balancing statements. It has way less to do with that incident that happened and way more to do with an identity that you've adopted. Less about a moment, more about a mindset. So a victim mentality has very little to do with becoming a victim and everything to do with choosing to stay a victim, if that makes sense. So you want to not change at all, just self-identify as a victim, and you will stay the same because you don't fully believe that you can change, or if you're really being honest deep down, you don't want to change, or it's safer not to. It'll cost you too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and for some people, diving back into the pain of whatever placed them as a victim
Yeah.
can be terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
And so intimidating because you kind of just want to pretend that didn't happen.
Absolutely.
I'm going to leave that there, but then you don't heal. It's still an open wound.
Right.
And I think that's how I would describe living in the victim mentality is you're just kind of living with an open wound for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And open wounds get infected.
Yeah.
And so it's only going to get worse, but
Yeah.
it's almost like you don't want to acknowledge it and go get surgery
Right.
because it's going to hurt,
Right. Yeah.
you know, to recover and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
I was watching two characters on a TV show talking recently, and both of them came from troubled childhoods and messed up backgrounds. And one of them was encouraging the other to like go get therapy, go get therapy, go get. And she just refused. Like I had a messed up childhood, and the protagonist in the situation said, you know, kids who live in messed up childhoods have to live in messed up childhoods. Adults who had messed up childhoods get therapy.
Right.
And it was a very like, and she could speak from authority because she had just done that.
Wow.
And she had put in years of doing the deep work and facing the hard stuff and getting the surgery, not just
Yeah.
looking for Band-Aids.
Yeah.
Like there is a way forward, no
Yeah.
matter how. And this is where it's tough because anybody who is listening to this, like we all have very good reasons to say, how dare you say that to me because you have no idea what I've been through.
Right.
And 100% have no idea what you've been through, just like you don't know me either. All of us can say that and mean it to a different extent. But the fact remains the same that there is a way forward to go.
Yeah.
It's probably painful and it's easier to stay where you are. But there is a way forward. You're not as stuck as you might want to think that you are.
Good.
Yes.
That is good.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just freezing. So
That's all right.
my hands are so cold.
But
right
to
now.
bring that to a bigger, more corporate scale, I said this in one of the services, but not the others. For the first time in, I think, world history, at least U.S. history, our generation doesn't believe that we can be more or do more than our parents' generation.
Whoa.
Dang.
Isn't that crazy?
That feels important to talk
How,
about.
how do they measure that, or how is that like true? How do they decide that's true of our generation? What's the
I think
data?
just like a ton of different surveys and studies.
Interesting.
Where they ask millennials essentially,
Wow.
do you believe that you can be more than your parents? Do you
Dang.
believe that you can move the ball forward? You know,
Yeah.
and I think so much of that is because for our specific generation, there's a lot of different factors that go into that. And I'll be the first to be so honest about the millennial generation and to believe in the future of the millennial generation at the same time.
Yeah.
But we were that generation that grew up, you know, you get participation trophies.
Yeah.
You get told that you're awesome. You get told you can do anything you want and be anything you want just because you want to do it and just because you want to be it. But then all of a sudden you graduate high school. I graduated high school in 2006 and then college in 2010. You graduate high school into a recession and then you graduate college into the real world where all of a sudden, like overnight, your degree means about an eighth of what it meant when you were a freshman in college.
Yeah.
And now you have a ton of student debt. And guess what? There's more recessions coming and a pandemic and wars. And it's just, and you could also say, well, there's been other tough times in human history. Of course.
Yeah.
Tougher times.
Yeah.
And generations like the greatest generation coming out of World War II who rose to it and became more than the previous generation and therefore earned the nickname the greatest generation.
Right.
Of course. But that doesn't change. But still, our generation has faced challenges.
Yeah.
You know, so that all kind of comes together to lead to a conclusive result in a bunch of studies that by and large a generation doesn't believe that they can do more or be more than the
Interesting.
generation before them.
Would you say that it's trendy to be victim? I feel like I see that a lot.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like trendy to like almost self-diagnose or get yourself into a sick symptoms of like you feel like you are depressed, but like you actually aren't. Like you feel like all these things because everybody else feels this, so you feel like you have to like be like everybody else.
Yes.
And it's like almost trendy to be victim, where people can give you the attention or people can give you that when you don't actually, like you don't have to live like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's so tricky because so much of it is valid.
Yeah.
Because bad things happen all the time. Like Jesus
Right.
said, in this world, you'll have trouble. Tough things are going to happen to you. People will do horrible things. The world is fallen. The devil is still at large. Things are very challenging. And so we have things that happen to us all the time that make us victims.
Yeah.
And that's the exact reason that, like, I don't know that you really want to get better. I don't know that you really want to change, because when you're, I had this illustration of the man on the mat. And so sitting on your victim, your powerless, your helpless mat, life is just safer. It requires nothing of you. And people ask you what happened and what's wrong. And you get attention for it. And you're known for that. And that becomes your identity. And it's just more familiar.
Yeah.
And in order to, we say all the time, I want to get well. I want to change for the better. But like, I really do believe deep down you do, but I think there's the flesh part in all of us that will choose, I'm going to stay here until the pain of staying here becomes greater than the pain of actually changing and doing something about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you're when you see other people just kind of opt for the easier decision of staying on their quote unquote mat, then you're like, well, that looks way easier.
It's easier, and now it's trendy, or that's
absolutely
considered better. I feel like when we were in high school, you did not let people know your problems. So the pendulum was too far on one side of like,
Right.
you put your best image forward. You want to have everything together, be successful, all that kind of stuff. That's what made people popular and cool and all that stuff. When my wife's brothers were in high school, they're, a decade or more younger than me. It was kind of shocking when I'd hear conversations they were having, or when I'd ask them about their friends in school, because it was like cool to have problems. It became like, and really like to sad levels of like cutting and depression and things like that. That was kind of like a badge of honor to get attention. And obviously there's a reason that these kids were doing that stuff. They were hurting.
Yeah.
But it was, I think, magnified and made worse because that became, the pendulum swung to the other side of like, everything is a problem. I'm always hurt. I can't be, a whole person. I'm so wounded. And I think maybe the younger end of millennials into Gen Z have kind of latched on to some of that, of staying on the mat is the thing to do.
Yeah.
And we constantly need more and more and more attention for that stuff. And but not really steps towards healing.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of fun to now stay on the mat.
Yeah, you can get a lot of views and a lot of likes by just putting a camera in front of you and for an hour having like a super vulnerable confession time. Yeah. Where you're just like, guys, I just want to, in the name of authenticity, which is noble on surface level, of course, but the main message that gets preached or portrayed is, I think that's why, by the way, let me just back up for a second. There's something about these generations that love authenticity and vulnerability for good reasons and for maybe some not so good reasons. And the not so good reasons are the more that you're vulnerable about how you're stuck or about your struggles or your pain makes me feel like, okay, first of all, I'm not alone. That's the good part. I'm not isolated in this. But then second, it licensed me to not have to do anything about it and stay where I am.
And then it becomes an identity.
It becomes an identity.
And that's,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what might be helpful in this whole framework is there has been a really interesting shift in this time frame that we're talking about. Sociologists talk about moving from the age of authority to the age of authenticity. And so for decades, the way that we found our purpose and our meaning was in authority. And so I'm going to do this for my country, or I'm going to do this for my workplace, or I'm going to do this for my family. I'm going to do this for other people. And when that's the mentality, you don't have time really to be introspective and notice that you have your own stuff to work on, because you got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But the shift has been towards now it's the age of authenticity, where all of the purpose and the meaning has gone inward.
It's the new frontier
into who we are.
Yeah.
And so if you want to live a life of purpose and meaning, you have to become so true to who you really are. And let me say this, there are some really good things to that.
Sure.
Like that's a really healthy shift. But I think that has caused this situation that Kayla just pointed out, where for decades, nobody wanted to admit that they were on the mat. And now nobody wants to get off the mat. Right. Age of authority, nobody has time to say, oh, I think I might be broken.
Yeah.
Age of authenticity, nobody wants to say, what if I heal? I don't know who I am if I heal. And
That's
so
good.
do you want to get well? I don't really think I do. And you hit on that just so brilliantly this past week.
It's that's really good. It's safer, and I said, I think we're stuck in a God's getting me ready season, where it's more of a cul-de-sac instead of a through street. And there is absolutely a season where God is getting you ready, but you can just very easily stay stuck in it, where God's about to do something in my life. God's about to heal me. God's about to call me. God's got plans for me tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's way safer when it's an idea and it requires nothing of you. Does that make sense? And so it's like, when it's an idea, I don't have to do anything. I can just sort of sit in this like self-made anticipation that gives me purpose, because it's tomorrow and it will happen.
It's so
but
true,
then
man.
tomorrow it's tomorrow, and then next year it's next year, and it's next year, and it's next year, and God's never actually doing something today in you that requires something from you.
Yeah. I think that people are afraid to get off their mat and just go live a normal life. I feel like the young generation, it's like there's two options in their minds. You either become the founder of a unicorn company and you're going to just crush it, because that's what's preached on TikTok and all these things of like, you don't ever have to get a job. You can just have an idea and you're going to become a billionaire and all that. Yeah. So it's either it's that, or because that's not working in my life, then I'm just going to stay on my mat and I have excuses for why I'm not going to go just get a normal job or live a normal life, because I'm either going to be the founder of a Silicon Valley unicorn, or I'm going to make excuses to not live a normal life. And our parents' generation and some of those older generations that very much just lived the life of working hard and providing for their families and kind of normal stuff that I think the younger generation has come to resent in some ways. I was at a coffee shop and I was overhearing a guy next to me in a job interview, and he's probably in his 20s. And his whole thing was like, yeah, my dad, like I watched him work really hard, blue collar job my whole life. He's still working. And like, that's just not for me. Like, I'm not going to do that. I want to retire when I'm 40. And all this stuff. And I was kind of like, what, unless you have some novel idea or some plan, you're interviewing for a job right now at somebody else's company. So unless you see yourself going somewhere that I don't right now.
This isn't the right place to say that.
Yeah, why are you saying that in a job interview?
It was in his interview?
In his interview.
Okay.
But I think that is so much the mentality, and I think a lot of it's preached on TikTok and social media stuff like that that causes that mentality. But I think it makes people look at a normal life where you kind of have issues and you deal with them, and then you work to serve other people and stuff like that's not for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a sad, lost
It
reality
is,
that
man.
most people live that life.
Right. Yeah. And it's more on, it's like when you are doing that sort of just 9-to-5 job, that is maybe a grind for you, and you have millions of examples on your phone all the time of people who seem to be just crushing it and living your dream.
They just get paid to travel.
It makes it makes what you're doing unbearable, because it's like the dichotomy between, it's the contrast. There's such a contrast between the life you see around you that you could have maybe, because they do, and the life that you're actually living today. Where before it was just, there wasn't that contrast. And so this was a lot more, not just bearable, but enjoyable. Normal was,
Well, and if you are on your mat, so to speak, and you're looking out at the world and like, I only want to do this path that's going to lead me to be this tech mogul or whatever, like even if you get that, that's not going to heal the stuff in you. That's not going
Right.
to, I think there's a myth too of the success and the influence and the fame. That will, then I'll be a whole person. Then I'll have everything I've ever needed. It's interesting. I read that story again of the man on the mat.
Yeah.
And at the very end of the story, Jesus finds him again at the temple.
Yeah.
And he tells him, hey, stop sinning. So something worse doesn't happen to you. And you kind of read that first of like, oh gosh, is Jesus like, hey, you better not screw this up or I'll come back and like put you back on the mat and worse. But I think what he's saying is, hey, you have a new life to live now. Go live that life. Don't go back to your old ways. Don't go back to the things that other people around you are going to say, now you can do this. Now you can do that. Like follow me into the new life I have for you. Or you're going to find yourself on a different mat somewhere else if you follow your own path and the way that you would do things.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, how often have we heard that story where somebody thinks that lots of money or lots of fame will fix the problem deep down, and then 2 years go by and you see them right back in that same problem, except now nobody wants to hear their sob story because they're rich or famous or they have that influence or that thing that the rest of us want, right? And then you just hear like, I don't when I hear people talk about that place, it just seems like such a lonely place to be. Where it's like, hey, all of these things, these like the things that we're chasing after, money, influence, all of that, they're great. They also don't fix the problem that put you on the mat in the first place.
Right.
That's why Jesus, like his mentality was so brilliant that he got down to the very core of this guy's insecurities and helped him get up and move on from there. So it's just such a great story, man.
When you see celebrities who commit suicide and everyone's just stunned, like man, everything that the world wants, you got there. How could you get to such a dark place? But sadly, they found out that that doesn't heal all that stuff, and that's where I think Jesus is coming to this man like, there's one way out of this for you to actually heal. You got to come with me because the world is going to continue to keep putting you back on a mat somewhere else.
Because all of those things are great outcomes, but they're horrible purposes. When you make the fame, when you make the influence, when you make the good life, whatever that is for you, so to speak, the purpose, it's a horrible purpose. It's a great outcome. Of pursuing a purpose of, and purpose can be like, if you are in that 9-to-5 job, purpose is, man, I'm providing for my family. I'm working this job to create opportunities to go do what I love outside of these hours where I'm working. I'm working towards a different future, even if it's 10 years from now. That you drag so much purpose into the present, into a job that would have before been mundane and monotonous. Now it has purpose because it's part of a bigger story in your life. Part of your purpose also, I believe, is you personally changing. And getting that counseling and doing the deep work and facing that shadow and integrating it into the rest of your life. Do you want you to change? You changing, I believe, is part of your purpose. I am called to not be the same. Like the person in your high school yearbook who wrote "Never Change." Sounds sweet, sounds great. It's terrible advice.
Terrible advice.
Hopefully, please God, I hope you're not the same person as you were
in high school
in
forever.
2006. You know what I mean? Like you should.
Great callback.
Thank you.
Exactly. You should change. You should change. And taking ownership of that. One thing I was going to put in the message, but I didn't have room for it, was ownership and that victim mentality. Like you show your victim card when you pray, God, would you change the outcome of my decisions? Versus, God, would you change me so that I make better decisions? You know what I mean? So, like God, like the perfect example is like sex outside of marriage. God, would you change the outcome of my decisions? Would you keep my heart from getting broken? Keep me from getting hurt? Protect me. Keep unplanned pregnancies out of my story. Change the outcome of my decisions versus the prayer shifts when you go, God, would you begin to change me from the inside out so that I start to make better decisions that are more consistent with who I really am and what I really want out of life.
I mean, I feel like probably some prayers I threw out in high school and college, God was like, here's the easy solution. Stop drinking till you're blacked out. And
Yeah.
then you don't have to pray to get home safe.
Right.
And get in your car, or pray
Yeah.
to, not have some bad situation arise from a girl or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
maybe if you just changed how you operated and lived, then those outcomes wouldn't happen. So that brings to, we were just talking about this yesterday with our staff. The book Atomic Habits explains this so well, that we're always outcome focused, and that's true of our prayers. But the outcomes root back through processes to our identity.
Yeah.
And I think that is what was so good about what you pointed out in that sermon, is Jesus isn't just asking this guy, do you want to be able to walk again? He's asking him, do you want to change how you see the world and how you live and operate? You are gonna change as a person. And so it's gonna be cool that you can walk and get up off this mat, but it's gonna also be a daily process as you are transforming and your identity is changing, and you can't call yourself a victim anymore. You're not the guy on the mat anymore. And all those things that came with it. That's the deepest question. Do you want your identity to change? And I think a lot of us don't think it can. And we don't think that's possible. Or we've just said, this is who I am. And so too bad. But if you can get down to your root identity level and be willing to let God change that, that to me is where the outcomes, of course, are going to change. Life is going to change. You're going to have a whole different everything when it comes to life. But that takes daily work. And so I feel like that's a math problem of the young generation, of like all these factors I'm seeing as we're talking that add up to why so many people are staying on their mats. Combine that again with Amazon Prime Life. And nobody wants to do hard work and do a daily process and go to counseling weeks and weeks and
play
weeks
the long
and years.
game.
Like, we don't live like that.
I bet you there's someone listening right now. What's the date today? January
17th.
We're 17 days into the new year. I bet you there's somebody listening right now going, who 17 days ago was like, okay, this year is going to be different. My outcome's going to be different. And sometime in the last 17 days, they've found out that it's not. They've gone back to that thing. And so now they're already punting on 2024. And they're like, well, maybe in 2025, I'll change the outcome. And it's because we're so hyper focused on outcome that we forget that the process is actually like, it takes a long time, man. Like, it takes months to change. It takes years to change. But you can change a little bit today, right? And so for that person who's already going, well, I thought I could change my identity, but obviously I can't. What we want to say is, no, you can. You can, but it's going to take consistency in the right direction and longevity. And so keep coming back, keep pressing in, keep praying, keep reading your Bible, keep doing these things. The spiritual disciplines, like, they just require frequency and they require consistency. But when you do them little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Well, you told me this morning, you're like, man, I just afraid that nobody's actually doing 21 days of prayer and fasting.
Dude.
You know, like, is anyone actually doing this? And I think that fear comes from that reality of human beings that are like, 21 days, that's a lot of time. I'm gonna be hungry. You know, like, there's just all these reasons why we can justify, like, that's a lot. It's gonna be too much. So we stay the same. You know, we don't see change in our lives. While all the while, Jesus is standing there like, it might take some hard work, but I can promise you I got something better on the other side of this. But do you actually want to get to the roots of your identity? Because he can change those things. We just are unwilling, I think.
It's like the process of prayer. I remember Sean, our pastor, saying the process of prayer, or the pursuit of a answered prayer, will change you in ways that actually getting your prayer answered never actually could. It's great. I hope that answered prayer comes as soon as possible. But your pursuit, the daily getting into the presence of God, and the struggle, and the grind, and the messiness of the middle, which you're going to preach about this coming week. Like, all of that stuff, that is where you really are changed. And so it's the days where you feel like, I'm not seeing anything happening above the surface. Actually, most of real change happens beneath the surface. You probably change more that day than you even know, but you're giving up because you're not seeing the evidence yet. But anything is possible with God if you give him enough time.
It's like getting into shape. like a person decides I'm going to lose this much weight, and then a year later they've done it.
Yeah.
They're not a different person right then because they weigh less.
Right.
Right.
They're a different person because they spent a year learning that they could do hard things
Yeah.
and they could make sacrifices and they could say no to things and they could see their life change. That all compounds day by day by day by day to where they are a different person a year
Man.
later. But it's not just because the goal got met. It's
Yeah.
the process that got you
Yeah.
there.
So get to church this weekend because this is all what I'm talking about. The
great.
messy middle. And if you resonate with any of this, like we get it. You're human. This is part of the process. But be there because we got some. I think this weekend's going to be really, really helpful and practical for a lot of people.
This is a quote from another Donald Miller book called A Million Miles in a Thousand Years, where he said, I think this is when most people give up on their stories. They come out of college wanting to change the world, wanting to get married, wanting to have kids and change the way people buy office supplies. But they get into the middle and discover it was harder than they thought. They can't see the distant shore anymore, and they wonder if their paddling is moving them forward. None of the trees behind them are getting smaller. None of the trees ahead are getting bigger. They take it out on their spouses, and they go looking for an easier story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah, that when you're talking about we're the generation that doesn't believe we can do more than our parents, I think it's that we don't want to. We're just like, I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to try. I don't want to have to.
Yeah.
I'm just going to kind of hang out and binge some shows and scroll on social media and get by and hope that I strike gold on becoming an influencer or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Or at least, to go back to the villain and the victor that all of us have the capacity for within us, or the flesh and the spirit. When Jesus is praying in the Garden of Gethsemane and he keeps asking his buddies to stay awake and they keep falling asleep, he comes back and he says, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Yeah.
And Eugene Peterson paraphrases it in the Message like this. He said, there is a part of you that is ready and eager and willing for all the things God has in you and for you. And the other part of you is as lazy as an old dog by a dying fire.
Yeah.
Right.
You have both of those capacities.
Yeah.
And the one that you feed is the one that leads.
Yep.
The one that you give more attention to is the one that you nurture is the one that grows, and the one that you starve kind of shrinks back.
Yeah.
And so I think deep down, everybody's got that in them. Your spirit, that part of you that is ready and willing and eager, it just kind of goes dormant over time because it's more challenging. But when you start to feed that and nurture that, once again, that's a big call to fasting. Is you starve, you go without what you want so that you can start tapping into what you really need.
Right.
You starve the flesh part of you and you awaken the spirit part of you. And one of them, the flesh was in the driver's seat and the spirit was in the passenger seat, but fasting switches the roles and says, spirit, you're driving.
Yeah.
It's the part of me that's ready for all things that God has for me. That part of me is calling the shots today. That part of me is making the decision. This other part of me, the flesh, that I used to feed all the time because it's easier, that part of me is going to start to shrink and die. And that, I think, is an internal picture of change, is when the victor part of you that God made and put in you begins to get stronger and rise to the challenge. And the villain part of you, or the victim part of you even, begins to get quieter and more subtle. But you have to do that on purpose.
Dude, you have to, and nothing makes that happen like fasting.
No, it's probably it's like the
crazy.
fast pass at Disney World.
It really is.
We were
man.
there. We were there a few months ago, and you get so mad because you're waiting in line for the Buzz Lightyear ride.
Yeah, for a 2-minute ride.
It's 90 minute. It's a 90-minute wait, and right when you're like, you've been in line for an hour and 15 minutes, and then this family just kind of cuts right in front of you because they have the fast pass.
Yep.
Fasting is the fast pass to change. It really is.
Yeah.
And the more that you push yourself in it, the more that it's harder.
Right.
But that pain is changing you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can stay bitter at that family that's just going by, or you can get yourself a fast pass by fasting and get in on the game.
But really, yeah.
So if you're listening,
that family paid a price that you weren't willing to pay.
And
they
you
paid
can
for
do
that fast pass.
We got 10 days left in this fast, something like that.
Yeah.
Jump in, be a part of it. All the information is on our website. It's on our app. There's ways to do this. We would love for you to join us. It's not easy. I don't feel great today, but at a deeper level, I know that I'm saying no to the flesh, and the spirit is coming alive
and
in me.
things are changing as you do it.
Yeah. So to say that to to a generation because it's not everybody. It's just and there's really good reasons behind why you feel like you can't do more or be more than the generation before you. There's really good reasons to that.
Yeah.
And the part of you that's eager and ready and willing just gets tired of trying and starts to shrink back and grow quieter and quieter, but it's not gone.
Yeah.
It is still very much there. And and that's who you truly are. That is your true identity.
Yeah.
Beneath the flesh is like, that's where you're, that's where you're timid. That's where you're scared of confrontation. Yeah. That's where you're not a morning person. That's where you're insecure. That's all of that stuff. And it's loud, but it's not who you really are.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus to the man on the mat was essentially saying, are you ready to become who you really are? Because he is the end. He's the beginning to the end, which means he sees the end from the beginning, and he knows who you really can be. So he'll call you, like I said on Sunday, he'll call you righteous while you're still addicted because he knows and sees who you really can be, and he's trying to speak to that part of you and awaken that up. And
So would you say that we have like two tiers of identities? We have the biblical truth identity, and then we have the identity that we ourselves can like make. Ethan, yesterday you talked to our staff about like the habits from the Atomic Habits book, but the habits that make your identity. So, and I loved the example that the book shared where you can explain it about the smoker. And I thought that was such like a good perspective of like, you're giving yourself a new identity, but that identity comes from like what you really are in Christ. So it's like tiers to the identity, tiers that you like, an identity that you give yourself, living from the identity that you know you have in Christ.
Yeah.
But I think that if you want to explain that, I think that would really help people because they know like, okay, now I know I can change, but it's like how? And I think that just having that like simple shift of how you go about talking to yourself inwardly is so good and has already like, it's only been like 2 days, but it's already like helped me to like stop myself.
That's awesome.
yes,
Go.
And just even
This
the
is
process
good.
of thinking.
Well, in the book, he uses an example of someone gets offered like a cigarette, and one person says, "Oh, I'm trying to quit," and one person says, "I'm not a smoker." And the difference between those two identities and how they see themselves will lead them to a different outcome. Because if you're trying to quit, you're always kind of have the justification or excuse when you fall. But when you say, I'm not a smoker, that's an identity thing that I just don't do that. Now, we're all human, so I think we ebb and flow, and that book is not written from a Christian perspective. And so what I would say is, I don't think it's just enough to just say that to myself every day. You know, like if you took that to a ridiculous level, if like I tell myself every day, oh, I'm a professional athlete, like that doesn't make me a professional athlete.
No.
But when you're talking about real identity roots that actually are affecting you every day of your life, the power of Christ will change those things and cement in you who you really are in those things. And I think, and we've been talking about this, there are some identities to the tier that you're saying that we attach to ourselves and then assume that's how God made us. And so that's how we're going to be for the rest of our lives. And that can either be this limiting factor that we don't even realize, or it's an excuse to not actually go live the life that he has for us. So a basic example in my life, and I said this earlier, if I wanted to get more discipline in my life, I wanted to get my workout regimen in place. I wanted to start my days reading scripture and letting God first start my day. All that stuff is great. But if I call myself and I always say I'm not a morning person, then I'm never going to actually see those things change because I have attached that identity to myself. I'm just not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. Well, when did that happen? Because I like to sleep. Because maybe when I was a teenager, I was sleeping in and my parents are like, this guy's not a morning person, whatever it was. I just say that's who I am now. It's like, no, that doesn't have to be how you are now. So that's an easy example.
That's so
There's
good,
deeper, probably more sinister identities that we hold on to say this is just who I am. But yes, it's possible to change and your habits will change, but they won't really change and do anything long-term unless you get to the root of your identity, of the roots that you are believing about yourself that are holding you back to those things. Because maybe you'll get excited for 2 days and you'll wake up early. And then by the third or fourth day, you're like, yeah, I'm just not a morning person, so I'll try something else. You have to change that root identity and start to believe that is true. And when you have the secret weapon of the power of Christ, of the Holy Spirit working through your life, I think you bring those things to him and you can actually see that identity change to where I look back now and I'm like, no, I am a different person. And that one identity root has changed a whole lot of different outputs and outcomes in my life that have led me to be a different person. And I'm grateful for that. And so I think that it's actually in that book is genius, because his whole point is we get excited about something like this and we just decide I'm going to do all these crazy big things. It starts with just little changes in your life, starting with just your identity. And those tiny little atomic changes will create seismic results in your life if you start there. And so maybe that's encouraging for some people that are like, I have so much that needs to change, but I don't even know where I could start. It's actually, I'd recommend that book, Atomic Habits, but it's actually some little things that could start you.
Yeah.
And then that grows.
You know, it all starts with one packet of AG1
That's right.
every morning.
That's right.
And before you know it, you're a healthy person.
Athletic Greens.
But that's why it kind of snowballs in either direction, for the good or the bad. So, and it goes identity and then action, identity and then action. So I believe I'm this person, therefore, and then it leads me. So I'm a smoker. So then I'm a smoker trying to quit. But I'm a smoker, so eventually I'm going to smoke, and then that action of smoking reinforces my identity that I'm a smoker, which leads to more action of more smoking. Yeah. And then those two begin to compound in the negative direction versus changing the identity of, no, I'm not a smoker. I'm not a smoker. And then your brain gets evidence of it by the action that follows the identity of, okay, I'm not a smoker. So this week, I filled up my car at the gas station, but I didn't go in to the gas station to buy cigarettes or whatever it is. And that's evidence for my brain and this identity. And then it reinforces the identity that I'm not a smoker, which reinforces me to a little bit more easily make the action decision to not smoke again next week. And so, but it begins with, that's why, like, resolutions and stuff, and it's still January. I love January. I love resolutions. But the main question you should be asking is, who am I? Who do I want to become, rather than what do I want to do?
Yeah.
Who do I want to become? Because if I can answer that, then, well, okay, this person will do these three things. So I'll go do these three things because I'm this person, rather than trying to just change a few things you do in hopes it's going to change, and hoping that it's going to change who you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You start with the core. You get to the core of it, the identity issue.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why Jesus will call you that before you act like it.
Right. And every outcome is a vote for or against that identity.
Right.
And so that's where I think these little things that you start to give yourself votes for. No, I am a morning person. No, I'm not a smoker. Whatever that identity thing is for you. I'm not a victim.
Right.
And I'm not going to entertain that right now because I am a victor. Yeah. And the last, let's finish with this. Yeah. You earlier were talking about there's one last part of the villain, victim, hero. Yeah. Then there is the guide.
The guide.
You said. Talk a little bit about that. And
the guide is... because when you say hero, don't think superhero. Think the broken, insecure person who had paralyzing self-doubt at the beginning of the movie, who had something bad happen, and they had a challenge. They had to rise to the occasion, and it transformed them in the process, and they overcame it because they transformed, and they were willing to walk through it. So all of a sudden, a hero is much more approachable and much more relatable. Yeah. You don't have to be Thor or Superman. Right. You just have to be willing to rise to the occasion. Yeah. You know, it's crazy. Like if you're writing a movie and you have a protagonist and you have this person's going to be the one who is the hero and rises to the occasion, the greatest thing that could happen to your protagonist at the start of the story is something bad. Right. Because it gets them to overcome something. Right. And all of a sudden that's relatable. You know? And so when you think a hero, think more relatable. And then the guide is somebody who has been there and made that change in their life before. Right. And they've been the hero time and time again. They've seen wins. And now they're helping other people win. Yeah. Which really, when it plays out in life, that's where real purpose and happiness is found. Yes. Yeah. Is you think, when you overcome that in your life, you know, if you have something to overcome, if you have a gap, all that means is you have an opportunity for happiness and joy. Because every time you bridge it and every time you rise to the occasion, you're met with joy and happiness on the other side. Yeah. So if you have chasms or gaps, if you will. Think opportunities for progress, which equates to opportunities for happiness in my life.
Yeah. Right.
And that's relatable to other people. The guide is somebody who helps other people realize that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the work that you get to one day where you can go, I overcame this and I can help somebody else.
Yes.
That I think so many people are being robbed from, going
Yes.
back to all that we talked about today, of all
Totally.
these factors of a culture that is not encouraging people to get up off their mats and walk because we want instant gratification or it's not happening, or we don't want to work hard, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's all these limiting factors that are keeping us from the ultimate purpose of getting to walk with somebody else through the story that you
Man.
once walked through. And how many, think of like 5 friends off the top of my head that have conquered addiction, and all they want to do is help other people get
That's
sober,
it.
right?
Yeah.
And to a very small scale, like I love helping people craft their time budgets and calendars and getting
Yeah.
their lives organized, as
Yeah.
lame as that sounds.
Yeah.
Because I needed that and I saw what it's done in my life and I want somebody else to experience that.
Yes.
That guide place is such an awesome point to reach in parts of our lives that too many people are getting robbed from.
Yeah, and I worry that we're going to have a lack of guides going forward. Of like I mean that just as a challenge and as a call to help fill that quota. There's always going to be younger generations coming up, and those younger generations are always going to need guides. And if you're looking for purpose and fulfillment in your life, there is no greater purpose and fulfillment than reaching back and helping the next generation move forward. And there's 1,000 different ways to do that, but I want to just put that call out. Like if you're like, well, but why am I even doing all this work? Why am I even fasting? Why am I? It's because it's so that you can get to a point where you can reach back and have actual, not just influence, but transformative impact on the younger generation's life.
Yeah. And you will
good.
see, you will then experience you want to talk about real happiness and real joy.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're on a mat, so to speak, maybe because something happened, or you have what an opportunity. Your story could be a survival guide for 100 other people.
Yeah.
You know, you wait. You want to feel purpose. You just wait.
You could trace the Apostle Paul's life through those exact things.
Yes.
That he probably had some reasons to be a victim of the religious life that he grew up in, all those kinds of pressures put on him, all that kind of stuff, became a villain. Then he became this hero, and eventually his letters are the picture of a guide who has all of this beautiful wisdom to pour to people, and also the ability to call people and say, hey, I know what you think about yourselves, but that's not who you are. Jesus has come to call you into a new life, a resurrected life, and I'm calling you to go live that, because I need more people to write letters like this, more people to share this kind of truth with other people. And that's the legacy of the church. That's what we're supposed to be, is guides through all of this stuff. So good stuff.
Good
Thanks,
stuff,
guys.
man.
A nice day. Kayla, thanks for your input today.
Yeah, no
Very
problem.
good. Do it more.
Yeah.
Well, as always on the Afterthoughts podcast, we like to thank our sponsors. So thank you to Athletic Greens, a comprehensive, convenient daily nutrition with 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients, made for just about everybody and made in a cool place, New Zealand. Wow. Thanks to Athletic Greens for becoming our first sponsor. Thanks to all of you for watching. Keep commenting, and we'll keep responding. Share this with somebody else.
Let's
and
go.
Have a great week.